The Pacers' second preseason game, a win in Cleveland over the Cavs, who did not play many of their starters. Makes it really tough to kind of dive into what we actually just saw in that game. For those new to these video recaps, I'm Tony East covering the Pacers for SI. And we're talking some Pacers-Cavs, quick 9 to 10 minute video breaking down the games as they come. And today we're talking about the second Pacers preseason game, a 129-117 win. The headliner, who we'll talk a lot about, is Bennedict Mathurin. To be clear, though, a key part of analysis of this game is the Pacers played their starters the first half. The Cavs played none of their starters. Jarrett Allen played the first half, and that's it. The rest of the Cavs starting five sat. And so, yeah, the Pacers won. They had some positives we'll talk about, but I think in general, they're largely not feel great about this. They were losing at halftime to a largely bench Cavs team. They gave up 70 points in the first half on their way to doing so. I think a lot of players individually had okay games, especially on the offensive side. If you look at the box score, people will smile and say good job to a lot of guys, but I don't think the Pacers will walk away feeling particularly awesome about this game. Things did not go, especially in the competitive part, with starters versus starters the way they maybe have wanted. And also, sorry if I'm distracted, the overtime period of the WNBA Finals is going on just off to my side. The headliner from this game, though, from a takeaway perspective, is Bennedict Mathurin. Without a doubt, wow. He had a wow performance for the Pacers in this one. 25 points. He only took 12 shots to get there. The only other two Pacers to take double-digit shots were TJ McConnell and Miles Turner, and those guys combined had 20 points. Mathurin by himself had 25 on 12 shots. He was unbelievable. 5 threes, 4 free throws. That led the Pacers. 5 threes also led the Pacers. Obviously, his point total led the Pacers. 3 boards and 1 assist, plus 15. He was sensational scoring the ball. His jumper has more arc. I'm convinced after watching him in some practices. I'm convinced after watching him in these games. I want to talk to him about it. It's been fascinating to see it actually happen in these games and see the level that he has reached, or at least reached in this game from a scoring perspective, as he really tries to work in his way to this team and fitting in better than he has in the past. And he's acknowledged that that's something he has to do. He's acknowledged that that's the next part of his game growing out. But this game had it all for him in terms of making quick decisions, right? He once pitched it to another guard and immediately ran over and set a screen. Not something you typically saw from him before. He obviously scored a bunch of points. His defense has been, fine enough throughout these preseason games. Ben Mathurin, the story of this game, and something that the Pacers will hope can carry into the regular season, is that they get this level of play from him. I mean, obviously, it's unreasonable to expect 25 points on 12 shots every night, but if he can be an efficient shooter, that goes a long way in him fitting in with other lineups. If he can continue to add to his game and blend what he does with what the Pacers do, that's what's going to matter. And he was, in that way, really sensational in this game. And the other key part of the Pacers building forward with him is he's one of their 2 lottery picks from recent seasons, the other one being Jarace Walker. Jarace Walker also was very good in this game. He did not miss from the field. He was 3 for 3, only 3 shots, but still he made them all. He made 2 threes. He had 4 boards. He had a very nice assist on his way to 12 points. So 37 combined for the 2 developing young lottery picks for the Pacers. They both played very well. Both had extremely good plus minuses, and I thought they were both better on defense in this game than they were against the Atlanta Hawks on Tuesday for the Pacers, which matters a great deal that they got that kind of performance from those guys. That's a big story, really, of their season and their path forward. And this was the first time. It's only the second game, so I'm not dragging this out, but it was the first time they both really clicked and looked good in this preseason, and that's certainly noteworthy as they sort out their bench. And speaking of the bench, that's the third place to go from this game, is the bench was whole. The whole Pacers rotation that you'd expect in the regular season played. Miles Turner returned. He did not play in the preseason opener, neither did Isaiah Jackson. He was back. Miles Turner was open a lot. The Cavs were willing to give him certain shots, and he took advantage in many ways. He was 5 for 10 from the field. He missed all of his threes, but 5 for 7 inside the arc. 3 boards, 2 assists on his way to 12 points. He had 4 fouls. That's not great. I didn't think his defense was particularly great. Jarrett Allen kind of had his way, and then he turned out to be a better defender if this team's going to defend well this year. But he fit right in on offense, and that starting 5 did well on that end of the floor. Right? No doubt that the Pacers are going to score. They did in this game. Their defense still, as it did in Atlanta, needs work, needs to take a step forward if they are going to be the team that they want to be. They want to be closer to the team that finished last season defensively and not the one we've seen so far. But Turner came in, offense clicked right away. The more interesting part of Turner's return, along with what it meant for Jackson and the rotation in general, is Jackson wasn't the backup 5 right away. The way the Pacers kind of switched things up and danced around with their subs is the first three subs in were Mathurin, TJ McConnell, and Obi Toppin. Then they brought in Pascal Siakam when Haliburton came out, and they also brought in Jarris Walker. And so Siakam and Toppin were the backup front court, and Jackson was not on the floor. Now, part of that works and is successful because the Pacers then have one of their two stars on the floor in Haliburton or Siakam, but I thought that was interesting. Jackson got in later in the second quarter for the first time. He was still clearly in their top 10 guys in the competitive portion of the game. He was fine. He hit an elbow jumper and had 3 blocks for Isaiah Jackson in this game. A nice defensive outing, but that was a unique wrinkle that I would like to see how that develops. Is that something the Pacers are going to keep relying on? Because I think they know, and they're going to try to do what they can to make sure one of Haliburton and Siakam is always on the floor, ideally both. And if that's a clever way to do it, that's great. But what does that mean for Isaiah Jackson's actual role in minutes? He's also coming back from injury. I don't want to read too much into it, but I did take a mental note of that as being something important in this game. Haliburton shifted more to being on the ball, I thought, than he was in the first game, where Nembhard and Siakam really did their thing. 7 points, 4 assists for Tyrese Haliburton in this one. Aaron Nesmith got going from 3. I thought that was noteworthy. But in general, I think the big takeaways are the stuff we've already talked about. The lottery picks doing their thing. Mathurin looking good. The return of the centers. Walker played well. And the Pacers defense just being really bad. They gave up 131 in the first game. The competitive part of this game with real Cavs players was 70 points. They have got to guard better. And they've talked about it. They want to. They recognize they were 18th after the All-Star break last year. That's great. They've got to reach that level for full games or long stretches, and that has not happened at all in these preseason moments. They have got to find a way to defend better, or else that they're going to head into the season with no confidence on that end and hope that they can keep outscoring teams. And they were able to do that last year and made the playoffs as the 6th seed, made the conference finals. But if they're going to take a step forward and be a better team beyond some of the ways they could do it with some young guy development, that's going to be a requirement, is defending better. In terms of the non-rotation stuff, Enrique Freeman, a big standout. He had 9 points and 8 boards, 7 offensive rebounds for Enrique Freeman. He had family in the building. Made a 3, defended pretty well, hit the glass really hard. Speaking of hitting the glass hard, James Wiseman also hit the glass hard. 10 rebounds for Wiseman. He was better in this game than he was in the first one. To me, finished plays and was a little bit better on the defensive end. I found that to be very impressive. So those two together were just a wrecking ball rebounding group, right? That was unbelievable what they were able to do. And that really is when the Pacers separated themselves. So credit to Wiseman and Freeman for having nice games. Tristan Newton hit some jumpers late. Cole Swider did not. Cole Swider started 0 for 7. He's going to shoot when he's open, right? And that's a good thing for someone who I consider a shooter. He was not a shooter in this game. 3 points on 8 shots. His only other stat was a steal. He's got to be better than that. None of them I thought were bad shots, but that's just not efficient enough. He's got to be better than that if he's going to be the player that they hope he can be. But that's the only key takeaway I really had with him. Less time for Quentin Jackson this game after his last game. I think with the rotation settled, it's clear where the two-way guys stand and what their pecking order is. So not a ton of takeaways from the late game stuff besides Freeman and Wiseman. I thought those two were the best of anybody, and that's a win for the Pacers. They ended up dominating this one when the rebounding came from Freeman and Wiseman, when the defense was a little better in the second half, and the offense kept rolling thanks to Mathurin and Walker and other guys. That helped the Pacers catch up and do their thing, catch up, stay ahead, do their thing, and run away with this one. They're now 1-1 in the preseason. They're done on the road. This is a nice scheduling quirk they have, where their last 2 games are at home, and they're at home for now like a week and a half before the regular season starts. So we can have practice updates here on this channel as well. Looking forward to that. If you want more on this game, Locked On Pacers podcast will have a lengthy breakdown out tomorrow with plenty more on Pacers preseason so far. Pacers 1-1 in the preseason, plenty more to come.